Speaking of trying to be a real boy, I am tempted to play Lies of P.
You should.
I guess we're starting. I don't know if y'all are already going.
I've been
but
recording for hours.
Excellent. That's what I told Packy is preemptive recording is better than late recording. So we're
recording at 2 today.
Jesus fucking Christ. So in my effort to be a real boy, by the way, this is Jetpack Sword's super cool gaming podcast. I'm Greg, and I'm joined by Packy and James, and I don't know what the fuck we're going to talk about this week. Oh, I do, actually. Packy's going to tell us about what game he's been playing with his limited hand mobility.
Yeah.
This is so funny. So I do not care. I do not care about talking about that game anymore, which I think is really funny. Because from the moment I made such a big deal about talking about it, I have not touched it once.
No.
Because I wanted to listen to the Starfield episode, but I wanted to go into it with the basic level of play that I would have gone into the episode with, like what Greg did, which is just an hour. And so I picked it up and played it and realized, I think the biggest thing is like in the past 3 days, my hand has gotten much better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
You can hold stuff like that. Yeah, which is nice. And then, but B, this is my pitch for this game. It is really not hard. So you could have a broken thumb. Your thumb could be in a cast and you can still comfortably get through the first 5-10 hours of Starfield with zero issues.
Space combats it's definitely the most challenging aspect of the game, but even that's not crazy.
I guess there you would probably struggle if you're having specifically just your thumb. But I think, and I'm sure later in the game, I can already see the signs that it gets way, way harder. But the initial, a long period of the initial part of the game is certainly engaging, but not easy.
It's a Bethesda game. Hard.
Yeah, it's all story, right?
It's as hard as you want it to be.
Boyd, so how far into it are you then? Total?
I got super deep.
We got to talk about Starfield then, because I want to talk about my stuff too.
Yeah.
I don't want to, because I think you guys gave a great overview of the game, and we could get into the nitty-gritty detail of where you go and the different main quests and stories. But I did think there were a couple of things that you all didn't mention. I'm really curious. I wish Ricardo was here. It is crazy to me he did not notice all the load screens. And that was a specific comment he made. I just finished playing several hours. And I was like, that's all I noticed whenever I was traveling places.
It's not good.
They're not terrible, but they're
not bad. Because it's just the benefit of the new console gen, right? They get so much mileage out of the fact that they really are only a few seconds every time, especially if you're transitioning rooms. But there's a load screen every time you transition rooms.
For me personally, I mentioned this when we talked about it, but I've never used photo mode in any game ever. And I have an album of photos in Starfield specifically because they get used in the loading screens, which I really, really, really like personally.
It's a really cool little feature.
I like when games do that. I like when they tie in user-generated stuff. I think, I don't want to spoil it in Red Dead 2, but how Red Dead 2 uses your horse, I think, was really, really cool. And
so good.
Final Fantasy 15 also did this. They, specifically the screenshots. It prompted you to do screenshots and stuff, but you didn't have to
with your boys. Yeah. And at the end of every level, it'd give you the recap of the screenshot with your boys.
Yeah, it shows it in the recap, and then this Final Fantasy 15 is so old. This is not a spoiler for anyone. At the very end of the game, you pick a favorite essentially, and it works your favorite screenshot into a Polaroid and shows it to you.
Aww.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. A very cool end to that game.
It's the second sweetest thing I've heard or seen in the last week.
What was the first?
Starfield spoilers, which I can talk about or not talk about, but yeah.
I don't want to spoil it. We're still early.
We're declaring it as a spoiler. I don't know. Well, I guess if Packy doesn't want to hear it, then yeah, we'll wait.
I guess first, I'm about probably, and I tunnel vision the side content. I'm not far at all into the main story.
That's for the best. Don't rush the main story.
Yeah, because you guys talked about that in your episode. I saw that all over the internet long before.
Yeah, do whatever you want to do for any of our listeners, but don't rush it. Don't feel like you have to.
Yeah, because it's a story-driven game, and as people will, and you mentioned about Bethesda games in general, that the best stories are not a part of the main story. They are elsewhere.
Usually
people find
not.
them.
I think some of the best set pieces usually are, but I think some of the best stories are this. Especially this game is the side content for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Anyway, so my context, I'm about 15 to maybe 20 hours, probably closer to 15, into the game, very deep into So a little, not quite as far as you were on the first podcast. And I assume by now you've probably beaten the game at least
I'm
once.
in New Game Plus on my main character, and then taking a break from that to start a pirate smuggler character, which I started today and did maybe 3 or 4 hours on.
And how far are you, Greg?
Oh, I gave up.
Lame. Weak.
You don't play anymore? You don't like it?
I got bored. I don't know.
Weak-willed.
It is definitely not a big action game.
I was teetering on the, like, it was perfectly riding the line of enjoyment and boredom, and it was the classic thing. It was stuff happened in life, and I couldn't sit down to play for 5 days, and then when the 6th day rolled around, I didn't. Yep. I didn't want to sit back down and play it again.
That's fair.
So yeah, I gave up.
Ghost of Tsushima. I'm sure that's an amazing game, but I just put it down for too long.
Yeah. Same.
So it definitely has, especially these, like, and I think that's part of this game is, like, it is particularly daunting with story-driven RPGs with lots of mechanics, because you need to both remember where am I in not only the story, but the many, many different intersecting stories that I'm engaging in, and then relearning the mechanics.
I just want to talk about that specifically. So you guys know, big Bethesda fan. I think the way Starfield is mechanically set up, where it is open world, but it is not a continuous open world in the sense that you go off and on planets and basically off and on like instanced cells, right? Like it's all abstracted to be like you're on a planet, but really it's a 2 by 2 kilometer square cell that you're in at any one time, right? I think that in addition to the in-game quest lines, specifically the 4 faction quest lines, like the major ones, and then obviously the story quest, I think Starfield actually, in my opinion, would be the easiest one to jump back into after a break, because it's not like jumping back into Skyrim where you have to figure out the lay of the land and get back to, Dawnstar or wherever. And I'd say in Skyrim and in Fallout 4, the storylines are less independent of each other than they are in Starfield. Starfield, each quest line, because I've done all 4 at this point, they are not really integrated into each other at all, which is like fine. It's like not a deal breaker or anything. But like Skyrim, for example, you have the Civil War that's like 1/2 of the main quest line backdrop. And I'd say like a lot of the other stuff kind of like dives into that a little bit. It's like, one of the main themes. But in like Starfield, if you do stuff for the, United Colonies, it doesn't really at all affect anything else for anybody. Like there may be occasional like just dialogue references to other things you do, but it's way less integrated the way than something like Fallout 4 or Skyrim. So I would just say that I think it's the easiest to jump back into after a break. So that might be good for you, Greg, in the future, maybe when the first DLC, or I guess the only DLC drops.
I would believe that. And to be clear, the 4 major quest lines are obviously Constellation and the 3 factions.
No, 4 factions. Constellation's the main story. It's separate.
Wait, what's the 4th faction?
Is the main story. So there is the United Colonies Vanguard, which is like the all-volunteer navy. Like it's not their actual navy, but it's their all-volunteer force. You're basically like a privateer. There's the Freestar Collective, where you basically join their advanced like super police force. You become like a ranger essentially. There's the Pirates. The Crimson Fleet, which is actually, in my opinion, the best quest line in the game for a lot of reasons. It was very cool. And then there's Ryujin, which is like the classic cyberpunk corporate espionage, industrial espionage one, which is fine.
Is there not a main story for the crazy religious people?
No.
Interesting.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but the religious stuff does kind of come back up through the Constellation, like the main story. Mm-hmm. But I've beaten it, and it does not become as much of a thing as I thought it was going to be. And I'm still waiting for more of the House Varun, the snake worshippers. I'm waiting for them to become a thing. And some stuff I've seen online makes me think that it might be tied to location/level requirement. And so you might not see them early on at all, or maybe if it's not that, then it's just going to be like what the DLC is, like for like 100. If it's not what the DLC is, I'm going to be super disappointed. So, because to me, they're the most interesting part of the game, and they, as far as I've gotten, are barely in the game.
Yeah,
that's good confirmation, because I was also looking for them very, very hard because they seemed very interesting.
we
and they're
can.
just
I don't
not
want to
there.
like make this all about what I was going to talk about, but from what I can tell, it's like I said, either location dependent because like a lot of the systems if you're looking at like the galaxy map to the like eastern right side of it, they're all very high level, like 50, 55, 60, up to like 75. So I've not been to a lot of those yet because even though I'm at New Game Plus and I did a lot of the content, like I did all 4 quest lines, which I originally wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to do all 4 on one character like I usually do. I was going to mix it up. But I ended up doing all 4. I'm only, I think, level 52 as of today on my main character. So there's a lot of stuff in the like galactic east that I've not seen. So part of me is hoping that's where House Faroon is because like their whole story thing is that they basically retreated away from like the settled systems and are doing their own thing somewhere after their big crusade they did like 70 years ago. And like nobody else knows where they're at all. Like none of the other factions know where House Faroon is. So I'm hoping you go out there and they're like, hey, what's up? And it's like a whole secret quest line. But I don't know. I'm probably just overreaching and it's just going to be the DLC. So
I did love how they integrated the background into the game. Like, I'm assuming, James, you definitely would have actually taken the time to walk through the entire UC Vanguard, like, history hall thingy. You know what I'm talking about?
I mean, of course
no, I did. Of course I did. Yeah, I don't know.
Dude, I love that. As someone who likes museums, that is like my favorite way you can present lore. I was so excited.
It's really good. Yeah, I agree. The backstory is not like crazy extensive, but I think they did a good because I also obviously that's biased because when you look at Bethesda's other properties, obviously Elder Scrolls has literally thousands of years of history behind everything. I love the Elder Scrolls. It's my favorite fantasy setting. And then Fallout has, hundreds of years of stuff beyond its like game environment. So Starfield doesn't have like a ton, but what is there is really cool.
Kept it very simple. I think that's why the museum format worked well. Because essentially there's like the 3 colonies, Terramorphs are notable, 2 notable conflicts, and like that about sums it up.
Terramorph stuff is cool. You got to get further in and see more of that.
Yeah, I want to see more. I'm so curious. You've made me so curious now how you managed to even do both the Vanguard and the Crimson Fleet quest lines. Because
it's the Crimson Fleet's the best quest line in the game, in my opinion, by far.
I was going to do. It's
so
also
you
the thing
that
that
get to it from the Vanguard one, if I recall correctly.
You don't actually.
Interesting.
No, there's got to be a different way because I know what you did. I'm further along with that, and I believe, as you would expect with the Vanguard and Crimson Fleet questline, that conflict comes to a head at some point.
So I'm going to put it this way. If you are playing a good character who does not commit crimes, you're going to get the Crimson Fleet one late within the main questline. If you are somebody who commits crimes and gets bounties, you will probably get it earlier as appropriate for a character who is already leaning towards Crimson Fleet stuff. Since I just started a pirate, smuggler, evil character today, I'm interested to see how early I can trigger it because I couldn't tell when I did on my main character if it was level requirement based, which like Skyrim does stuff like that with like the Daedric quest. Like you can't do all the Daedric quests like from the bat. Like you have to be certain levels to do them. But yeah, the Vanguard is I think my second favorite quest line, but it's not tied to the Crimson Fleet at all.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of the one where they basically have you infiltrate them.
Yeah, that's the one I've done. That one is, again, I was pleasantly surprised with that one because I thought it was going to be a very bland, like, we're the good guys, we're going to go bash about the pirates kind of thing, and it gets way more interesting than that. I just like those stories. Though, the moral choice system is really laughable. There's not much gray. It's like, do you want to be really nice or just needlessly be a dick?
No, it's like the Mass Effect one, where it's like, some of the renegade options are cool, but God, Shepard is a piece of shit in those, and not even in a like the ends justify. I think we've literally talked about this before, like not even that many episodes ago. But it's not even an evil where it's like the ends justify the means. It's literally just I'm a bad person. It's like that's stupid.
You don't even make that much extra money. That if I could put a big tip out there to anybody who's first playing the game, because the game. And I really want to ask you all about how you felt about like how they clearly removed a lot of the survival crafting elements. That I think I saw a big post about this on Reddit, and it was certainly something I thought independently starting the game was that you could tell with how spaceships work and with how so many of the like survival items work that they like stripped out a lot of what used to go into outposts and space travel. because like you have fuel that's not used.
Yeah.
You just have all these different elements like what's the other one? Like outposts were clearly intended to be like fuel stops. You just fast travel everywhere, so you don't really have like a spaceship experience.
What's interesting too is that like you said, you can see the bones of what's still there, because like your fuel does matter. Like fuel for your ship matters, but it is not a depleting resource like it is in something like No Man's Sky, where you have to replenish it. Like you have unlimited fuel up to your capacity, and that just determines, along with your grav drive stats, how far you're able to jump in one go, which does matter because most of the systems are within reach, like pretty low like amounts. Like when you look at your ship in the customization like builder, it'll say your range is like 17 light years or 20 light years or whatever. Most of the systems are within range of that, but to get to a lot of them, like especially in like the further, like I said, like the Galactic East or whatever you want to call it, you have to have at least a 28, and I think the max right now is 30. But that requires you to usually to have like either a lot of fuel, which takes up a lot of space, or have a like pretty light ship with an advanced grav drive on it.
Is that still
like,
true
the outposts,
even after you've discovered it, or is it only true for the first time you go there? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's still true. I might have to do some more testing on that. But I was also going to say, for like the outpost thing, if you have an outpost that is mining or like gathering helium-3, the fuel resource in the game, it does actually extend like grav drive jumping. I don't know how it works in the sense that you have to leave from that outpost and it does it, or if it's just like a flat passive bonus.
I think it's if that outpost is in the jump path, if that makes sense.
It boosts it.
I think
like I said, I haven't had a chance. I've started to do a lot more outpost stuff on my like New Game Plus character because I have like the quote unquote time to do it. But I haven't done a ton of it yet. So
that was the last thing I had done, which is why it's fresh in my mind. Is from what I recall, is if you build the helium extractor on your outpost and that outpost is in a system, and that system is on like the jump path from where you are to where you're going, then it, know, basically starts you from, I don't know, it does something.
Yeah, I know it definitely does something.
Functions as an refuel, I'm sure.
For the because you can link outposts also, and if you want to link outposts that are between systems, so like not within the same system, they do consume helium-3 also, the transport ships that just like go back and forth to transport the resources. So you have to have like an outpost mining that to make sure that those ships are fueled, so that way the whole like logistical thing keeps running. But yeah, no, you're 100% right, Packy. Like they definitely had a survival mode, which is something that like all the other ones have had, all the other Bethesda games, that they scrapped at some point. And I'm sure it'll come eventually, but it's there in like a weird, I wouldn't even say half-ass, it's like quarter-ass. Because like environmental conditions matter, but they also don't. It's really like abstract system. And like I said, you can see the bones of it, but it's just not fully there. Which like I don't mind either way, but it's interesting that they left the parts in that are there.
Yeah, my experience was like I'd go to a planet that was like negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit, and I would lose like 1/10 my health, and that was it. And I was like, okay, I guess. Yeah.
And like the game like gets mad at you. It's like warning, warning. Your suit's protection's
but nothing's happening. Like I lost 1/10 of my health. Oh no.
There's the stats that your suits have, where like you'll equip like a piece of clothing in the suit, and it'll say like corrosive protection plus 20 or whatever. But there's no like in-game bar that depletes to keep you aware of that. Like your watch beeps at you when it gets close to depleting, but like there's no visible metric to actually see the rate at which things are depleting, or like how much overall capacity you have, or anything like that. It's like I said, it's just weird.
Yeah, I am curious if you guys think the game would be better or worse if they actually had implemented it. Like if you added that in and made it not just a little less on the survival aspect, because I don't. It's helpful, but I really think like what
I think they should have done it, or they should have not done it. Right? Like I think in the weird quarter-ass state, it's just kind of like I started the outpost stuff, and I literally was asking myself, I was like, I have no idea why the fuck I'm doing this. Like, I was like, I'm doing this because it exists. It's a thing I can do, but like, I don't know. It was weird. Like, which is probably another thing. If the last thing I had done wasn't starting an outpost, I probably would have been more likely to go back to it.
Yeah, I didn't literally tell you, and I said it, like, don't dive into that stuff early on, because the game definitely does not encourage you. Like it doesn't, like the game doesn't mind if you dive into it, but it doesn't encourage you to do it until later, because there is such an upfront investment cost in skills and materials and money to get to that point. That's why I'm not doing it until, New Game Plus. Like I've had an outpost the whole time, but it was mostly just a place for me to go see the followers that like I didn't actively have on my.
That was why I
was
did
just
it.
building like a little community.
So that was actually, so I recruited 2 followers, and one of them was like Outpost Overseer, and one of them, which I think is Lynn or whatever.
Was it Lynn?
Yeah, of course.
Was it Lynn and Heller? Yeah.
And then the other
They're
was
the 2
obviously the
Outpost
guy.
ones.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I got these people. Let me go like have a place for them. And so like, and it was literally just like a fucking habitat and a bed and a research station and like a single mine. Yeah, you know. But then like it was still unclear to me. It was like, again, I don't know why I just did that. Like I did it because it was like, oh, they have these like outpost buffs. And it was like, oh, this one will let me like research a thing, you know, but like it still didn't let me research the thing, even though the guy was assigned to the outpost and the station was out it was just weird and not good.
It's very abstract. And I have a feeling with time that stuff will get fleshed out and be way better.
Yeah.
Because like one thing I'm disappointed by is, I don't know about you guys, but like obviously like I love Fallout 4, and Fallout 4, I really liked the settlement building even before like all the patches and updates and stuff. I really liked it. As someone who loves city building games, I thought it was really cool to have a system where you could build a little city. Even if all the characters are nameless, they're just called, you know, citizen or settler or whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just nice to have a thing that you made and it runs well, right? And as far as I can tell in Starfield, you can build these little outposts, but you can only populate them with, like, the named companions, whether that's the actual, like, real companions, like the 4... I think it's 4 Constellation members, or the like, you know, like Lynn and Heller, who are, you know, secondary companions who don't actually matter.
I think you can also get some like unnamed companions from
you can, but they're nothing.
Yeah, they're
like,
literally
they
nothing.
They just say like outpost management expert, and that's it. And to me, that's worse than if it was just a nameless character called citizen or like colonist. I would rather it was that, because at least that's more abstract to where my brain can fill in the details. But if it's just somebody called outpost management expert and they literally have no dialogue when you talk to them other than saying like yes and no, I don't know, I just don't feel like I'm building anything for the sake of building anything. Like I thought going into the game that you were going to be able to I thought they would port that over from Fallout 4, especially because there's an entire quest chain for an organization called List that is all about building, like, the organization List takes people, gives them basic supplies and a communication satellite, and they get put on a random planet somewhere, and they're just told to make a life. And that, to me, felt exactly like what the Outpost system would be. Be like, hey, you know, I'm an up-and-coming colony manager. You know, why don't you join my colony? And, like, at least you'll have a place to live, and I'll protect you. And literally just the Fallout 4 system, but in space. So I'm hoping that it gets filled out over time. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'm really, really curious what systems they will build out.
Yeah,
as the game continues, because it's been popular. They're going to give it attention.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, I love the game as it is right now. I mean, like, I literally, all I want to do is play that game. And even though I've already done so much of it, I just want to keep playing it. But I'm very excited for, I think they've only announced one DLC called, I think, like Shattered Skies or something. Shattered Space. But, yeah, I hope it's a very large, like, game-changing expansion the way something like Dawn Guard was for Skyrim.
I'm curious, Packy, which platform are you playing on?
I played on both. I played on both Xbox and on my laptop.
I was...
that is...
Go ahead.
Just mainly motivated by where did I want to play in my house. If I play before bed, I will play on my laptop. The rest of the time,
the same save file and everything, obviously, thankfully.
Oh, yeah. No, it transfers. It's not as, like, perfectly smooth as I would want it to be, where you can just actually just turn it on and immediately works. I have to usually turn both on and then get it to sync. Yeah. But it does work, which that's good. No other platform can say.
That's good to know, because I'm tempted to do that if I try to play it again, just so I can install the mod that removes all the garbage from the world, because I refuse to believe that inventory management is a good mechanic in any game ever.
There's definitely games where that works, but man, does this game show you, like, it pump fakes you so hard on you want to pick stuff up and sell it, and then it throws up so many roadblocks to doing that.
Well, in my opinion, the weird thing is, one, like in Fallout 4, you could break down all random junk into its base components, and that's how you did the, like, you know, crafting and stuff. Like, you would break down tape into adhesive, and the adhesive was like a huge bottleneck crafting component in Fallout 4. This game has all the junk, but you can't do anything with it.
It literally just clutters the UI. That's all it does. It's just
which like I'm happy to have it be there for like set dressing.
Exactly. Even have physics on it.
Bethesda for their. I love Bethesda like in their environmental storytelling. I really do, but it's just weird that it's there for no reason. It feels more like the Elder Scrolls in that regard, which is it's weird coming after Fallout 4 and borrowing so much from Fallout 4 to jump it back to like the Skyrim model.
Yeah, I will say games added a scanner mechanic for a reason. It's because it's not always easy to tell what is the interactable object I need to interact with in this room in a video game. And they did successfully ruin that because they highlight pretty much every object in the room.
Yep. No, it was really frustrating. I checked. There is a mod that basically makes all this junk shit not pick upable. So
there's already a lot of great mods. So I've been thinking about getting the game for the PC too, just to dive into that also.
Yeah, I might play more laptop to do. I'd probably immediately install some quality of life mods like that. And the other one that I heard about again before I even played the game, when I saw this issue in the trailer and somebody made a post about it, was I'd love a mod that reduces time to kill for both the player and enemies.
Oh.
I think it's a little slow.
It depends on the enemies and like what you're using. The worst are the like elite enemies, especially later on, but at least they are guaranteed to drop something that's like maybe good. So you can also you can crank the difficulty up, which is what Fallout 4 had also, which increases rare, legendary, and exotic drop rates also. It's noticeable, but it does not guarantee that it's still going to be a like, good item. I've been trying to do it to like kind of game it, and I'm still mostly just getting blues that I don't care about. But I have gotten some golds that are actually good. So
there is a level beyond gold.
Gold is the highest.
Okay, never mind.
It's blue, purple, gold. Blues only have one like special trait. Purples have 2, and golds have 3.
Oh, did you guys have? I just never really thought about the not the contraband system. That made sense to me, but the stolen item system. Because I had 2 of the gold weapons that I'd stolen just by happenstance. And I did not realize that people would take those away from you if you went to a planet and they searched you.
Yeah, don't get caught. If you go
to the security office, you can pull it out of the evidence lockers, which is a classic Bethesda thing also. Also, I found out, I saw videos about it. The trade authority they'll buy anything regardless if it's contraband or stolen. And if you sell them stolen items and then you go over to the buy menu and go down to buy back, which lets you buy back the item you sold for the same amount of money back, it like cleans it. So it's not stolen anymore. Which is, I don't know if it's afterwards. On purpose or not, but it's a nice little system. So I hope it stays. Because you still got to get to the planet if it's,
that feels like one of those oversights that they will keep around. Like it doesn't feel intentional, but it feels like they're going to keep it.
They're already hammering down on some glitches. There was the one that everybody was talking about where you can steal the store owner's inventory in Aquila City. That's already gone. The most recent update took that away. So
I think that's an obvious abuse, right? I think the TFA thing is more like
that's not.
I mean, there's one where
that's a game design.
Was it Aquila City or no? It was New Atlantis. Huh? There's a spot on New Atlantis you can like literally glitch under the world and like go steal from the shipmaster or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was.
I mean, Aquila City was the one where you look at a puddle and you steal the general store's entire inventory, but you're not stealing it because it's technically not like owned inventory. But I'm pretty sure they just fixed that. So
it was that one. I mean, there were a bunch of different spots where essentially if you just looked in the right place, you could access different stores' inventory, again, or do Greg's trick, which is get under the map and then do it for everywhere.
And you can still do even more classic stuff where you like put buckets on people's heads and that counts as them being like unable to see. That's classic. I love Bethesda games. They're my favorites.
The one I thought, did you guys see the clip of the guy who there's like a table with a massive amount of credits on it, but it's the middle of a bunch of guards and stuff like that. So he brought in a laundry basket and then abused the physics engine to slowly move all the credits into the basket and then walk to his ship with it.
I mean, I've seen that. I did something today that, like, in a real situation would make no sense. I was in the well, which is like the underside of New Atlantis, like the slums. And I went into the security office and there was contraband sitting on the desk of an officer and she was sitting in the chair at the desk. And I just got right up next to her, but behind her. And I was close enough where I could reach the contraband, but I was still hidden. And so I just grabbed it off the desk. And she was just like, okay, have a good day. And I was like, great. I don't know how you didn't see me, but whatever. I love Bethesda games. There's nothing, literally nothing like them. They are my absolute favorite games.
I do think I've not seen as many The Outer Worlds comparisons as I thought there were going to be.
Right.
As someone who played both games, they are very similar. Starfield is better.
Like Bethesda saw Obsidian's kind of success and was like, we're just going to do our own thing. And I haven't played a lot of The Outer Worlds, but it definitely has Outer Worlds, like without the like tongue-in-cheek satire that game was full of, but it's definitely Outer Worlds.
Because No Man's Sky stole all the comparisons, which is not an apt comparison, but it stole them all anyways.
No, I think it's an unfair comparison for both games.
It's very, very misleading, particularly because I think people know what they're getting going into No Man's Sky. I think that's more clearly stated, but the comparison of No Man's Sky to Starfield makes you think this space travel is going to be, and anything that involves like collecting and crafting is going to be far more involved than it is. Like you were mentioning, James, you have to invest a bunch of talent points and time and money just to even like make those systems fairly usable.
And a lot of it's not worth it. Like weapon crafting for like mods and stuff is definitely worth it because like the weapons, obviously a massive component of the game and it actually changes how they look and function and stuff. But like the spacesuit modding doesn't really matter at all. Like it's there, but the mods that you get for spacesuits are like not that good. There were better ones in Fallout 4. Again, a system that they could have just borrowed from. The Outpost stuff is cool, but again, like it's so much of an investment that you're not going to do it for a while. And then the Starship stuff is fantastic and 100% worth it. Just because again, it's an even bigger component than the guns and stuff, but it is a large commitment. But that one is worth it.
Give anybody playing the game, like it is worth. I think Shipbuilder, if you are not into that kind of thing, is a little daunting at first.
So the controls on controller are kind of jank.
Tip number 2:
I didn't think it was
open it up on your PC. Yeah. It's not bad, especially once I had done it on my PC and I learned a bunch of the like different things that you can do, where I thought it was easier, and then I just started doing it on console.
I will say, I had a lot of experience building settlements and stuff in Fallout 4, and specifically when they added the Vault Tech DLC to Fallout 4, where you could build the actual vaults, which 100% is where they got the shipbuilder from, because the Vault Tech one was all about like snapping pre-built, prefab cubes together, essentially, which is exactly what the shipbuilder is.
Yeah.
And I did it in Fallout 4 where the controls were even worse because there was no like orbit camera or like any of that stuff. Like you were just your character walking around trying to build an entire vault. So maybe I'm biased because this is such a massive step up from the Fallout 4 version.
I can't imagine doing it in world. It'd be really annoying if they even had you in the dock. Like the fact they take you to the little blueprint room
building
is really
the
nice.
Fucking vaults, which I built. I haven't done it since basically the DLC came out, but I built an entire like 6-story massive vault in Fallout 4, and it was so rewarding because it was so cool. But it was also it took me hours to build that fucking thing because the controls, because again, you're just your character walking around like trying to place cubes, and there was no like rotating like super easily or anything. Like it was so much worse. The outpost building and the shipbuilding is so much better in Starfield.
Can you upload builds and stuff like that?
I don't know.
I didn't see that system. I'm guessing if they didn't throw it in your face, it probably doesn't exist.
Maybe in the future they'll add it, but I'm honestly probably a mod will add it.
That's screaming for a mod.
Definitely that.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I'm curious, speaking of mods, they had like obviously the modding for all the other Bethesda games ever. That's like one of their classic things also. But they also had in Skyrim and Fallout 4, they had like their quote unquote like sponsored ones, which were the ones you actually like paid money for, but they were like made by top tier, mod developers or supposedly and stuff. And I think they were called like creations or like the Creation Club. And I think in the most recent patch notes that they're planning on bringing that back, which is good because at least then like for sure consoles will get some of the modded content. But I don't think they said they were going to bring modding to consoles the way they did for Skyrim and Fallout 4. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about that also.
But yeah, I just I give up. Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, it's funny because
I'm
James
not too
obviously
surprised.
said he just loves Bethesda RPGs, and they are just not for me. They are just definitely not for me.
They were not for me up until this one. Every other one, and Ricardo said the same thing.
Oh,
Like
this is
I
by far and
played for like
away
an
the
hour.
closest or the furthest I've ever got in a Bethesda RPG. 100%.
They definitely made a bunch of improvements. They could make more to the moment to moment gameplay.
Oh,
I
it's
think.
coming.
Yeah.
Don't
The
worry.
ironic thing is, I think so in general, I think I just don't like open world RPGs. And I don't like
I don't think you do
heavy.
either.
I don't like heavy on the RP part of G's either. Um,
Same,
and
hard same.
and so, but it's kind of funny because I think I'm not playing anything right now. I was actually talking to someone, I don't know, maybe Ricardo the other day, and I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of in like I've gone back to my comfort game, which at the moment is just Halo. It's just like the thing I can pop on, play 45 minutes, and just be like, okay, cool, whatever. Before I really pick what I want to play next, and it's because I'm torn between Lies of
Mm-hmm.
P and Cyberpunk, which is I suspect going to have a lot of the same
So I can talk
problems I
about
have with
Cyberpunk
Starfield.
also. I've
Yeah,
been
just go
playing a
for
little
Lies
bit
of
of
P.
the 2.0.
Yeah, how do you like it?
I like it a lot more than the original base game for sure. I guess for me personally, it was really just like I didn't like the skill trees at all, and they are more. There's more weight to them now, like more like actual impact and choice for what you do. And I do really honestly, I think playing Starfield and going between those two games has made me appreciate Cyberpunk more.
Interesting. Okay.
They've obviously done a lot of work on it, but I'm just in a better, I think, headspace for the like kind of a little janky, but like first person RPG. I do wish my biggest complaint about Cyberpunk is I think it's too big for what it is. Did you guys ever play either of the two modern Deus Ex games?
Not no.
Mankind Divided or Human Revolution? Either of them? No, you really should. They're fantastic, but they are much closer to like Arcane's games where they're immersive sims. Like they are RPGs, but they are 100% immersive sims. Where like the world is like very realized. There's a lot of choices you can do. I mean, they're classic Deus Ex. Deus Ex has always been like an immersive sim style game. And I really wish Cyberpunk was more like the Deus Ex games and less like something like a Starfield or a Bethesda game. I think CD Projekt Red would have done a much better job making a really, really good, really, really dense, small, like slightly smaller scale, like immersive sim. I feel like all the elements are there in Cyberpunk, but it's just not that kind of game. It's a first-person open-world RPG. But yeah, I like it more. I'm going to get Phantom Liberty, I think, at some point, just not right now. I'm going to try to do all of Cyberpunk, like the base game, because I've honestly never done very much of it. So I'm going to do all of that first, and then we'll see about Phantom Liberty, which is supposed to be really, really good. So
yeah, that is promising.
Hey, Greg, if you didn't like all the different Rockstar games or Starfield or
you
those
might
games,
like it more because it's way more story driven. Like your character is voiced. There's way more like character sequences and way less of just like the open-ended Bethesda.
Yeah, that's
of
kind
Starfield.
of the impression I got. Also,
you also didn't like The Witcher.
Yeah, but this is
I
me
mean,
shooting people with guns, so
I don't know. I don't think you'll like it. Potentially
No
like it, but I don't think
I don't think I'm gonna like it. I think I will like it as much as I like Starfield, though. And again, I actually do like Starfield. I just got
God, you're gonna make multiple people angry with that statement. I don't know who you're making angry, but you're gonna make multiple people angry with that statement.
But my hope is that things are
like
closer together. Even though it's open world, Starfield, because of all the loading screens and the jointness of the planets, it felt boring. I mean, boring is the wrong word, right? But like, it was longer to do. Like, I think I saw something. It was like, I think it was CD Projekt Red, actually. They did like some study and basically found like the ideal time between like travel time in game or like real life travel time between points of interest in a game is somewhere around like 40 seconds because people like me have fucking massive ADD. And that is not the case in Starfield, right? Like Starfield's travel time between points of interest is way fucking higher than 40 seconds. And so my hope,
really?
I don't think it is.
I think so.
even with fast travel.
Dude, if anything, I think it's really short.
Do you real
Just,
quick question? Are you playing the game where you're actively going back to your
Oh
ship,
God, no.
flying
I
up
mean,
to
I did that
space,
at one
going
point,
to
and
a
that was a
planet?
mistake. Oh God, no.
I mean, it's really like it's way more thematic. So I do it occasionally just because like I love space and like takeoff.
I
And
do it when I
everything.
get a
But
new
like
ship,
you
right?
should
But that's it.
you should literally just be going down on your stick to go to your quest. Hit X on the quest, and it'll take you right to the location immediately. It's one loading screen usually.
True.
the second I hit the end, like a transitional point in a quest, I just instantly open the menu and then click the quest and then click travel to.
That's what I'm saying. There's a button that says set course, and
No.
as long as you've even like
Yeah.
vaguely heard of the system before, it'll take you right there. And I hate to like only do that, but like I said, at least it gets around the issue of the like multiple loading screens. It's usually just one.
It was a requirement,
and they're not
for
that
me.
long.
Like it was absolutely mandatory for me. Like I couldn't play it without it.
I think you're being unfair to
Well,
Starfield.
again, remember the last thing I did, so therefore what's top of mind is I was trying to build a settlement and then going to the point of interest on the map that was near the settlement, which is
Why didn't you build a landing pad? It's really cheap to build a landing pad, so you're just right at your settlement.
yeah. So I did that. I could get to my settlement easily, but like then one of the last things I did was like I built the settlement near a POI on the map. So I was like, oh, okay, let me do this thing. I don't know. And then like I'm like, let me go explore the POI now. But then that was a mistake. I made a mistake of walking there.
I think you have a misunderstanding again that the entire game is an infinite number of 2x2 kilometer cells that are not connected.
I mean, the problem was I landed close enough to the thing that I made the mistake of deciding to walk to it. And I should have just built my settlement so far away that I wouldn't have even tried to walk to the thing.
I almost think, I'm going to be honest, I don't think you could have walked to the actual point of interest that you were interested in. I think you were walking to something that might have been in a similar one, but I don't think anything is actually connected in Starfield. It's all 2x2 squares.
Well, so I think what happened was I probably landed at the POI initially and then explored from there and started building the outpost or something like is probably what it was.
That makes more
and
sense.
So it was loaded.
That's
like it
fair.
was loaded and rendered, and I did make it there.
Yeah.
And it was actually really interesting. And this is one of the things where I do feel like Starfield shines. It's because it was I was at the point in the little bit we had talked about earlier of infiltrating the Crimson Fleet, and I hadn't finished that out yet. And so I go to this this POI. I'm like expecting to like fight some baddies, and I get there and they're all just passive to me, and they're like, it's a good thing you're in the fleet, or I would have killed you already. And they said that like 18,000 times because that's apparently the only line they have recorded.
Well, it's because they're usually enemies, so they're not supposed to have friendly dialogue.
But that was
That's a classic
really cool.
Like
that was super cool. Like showing up there and like, yeah, I totally was expecting a fight. And then they just didn't, and they just let me like walk around and loot everything, and that was cool. And then honestly, I like kind of wish I just murdered them all anyways. But no, I just looted.
You could have.
I could have. Yeah, I probably should have. But I was at the time, I was just like, I'll just loot things. This is a cool, novel experience, like showing up and not being immediately attacked. And so that was very cool.
Yeah. Sorry, not to. I realize I just spent like 5 minutes shitting on you, Greg. I apologize.
No, you're good. I mean,
You deserved it.
Yeah.
I'm just very familiar with Bethesda games, so like I know exactly what I'm getting myself into with this game.
No, I mean,
definitely get the vibe.
Bethesda games.
I think the vibe was right. It was just I mean, you nailed it with, I think that typically like very heavily story-driven games do not resonate with you as much.
No, I like story-driven games. I don't like everything else Bethesda puts around the story. If they had just given me the story.
Greg needs the industry to go back to when linear single-player games were more the norm. Like PlayStation has it as the norm, but like nobody else does. Right now, anything that's a linear single-player game just ends up being a Soulsborne, like or a Souls-like, which not what Greg needs.
Lies of P was the thing I was looking at play.
It's supposed to be good. It's on Game Pass.
Yeah, that was I heard. So it's supposed to be good, and specifically, actually, apparently, like the story is one of the like more okay-ish written stories of a Souls-like game, and so I was like, okay, that's cool.
Hey, they're all great. They're just all very obtuse and abstract.
And I want to be a real boy, I want to be a real boy. But apparently they have like weapon crafting or something, which seems really cool. So like I look forward to Here's what's probably going to happen is this weekend probably going to start Cyberpunk, and as we all know, I will give up on it very shortly, and then I will
You
go
will.
play Lies of P. And I will probably end up beating that game. Isn't it?
I wonder if you would like Sekiro specifically.
Yeah, I've
Because
heard
it's
that.
like it's one character, it's one weapon type with some like offhand like secondary weapons, and it's like a good just straight through story. It doesn't have nearly as much as the usual FromSoft like all over the placeness with like its story setup. It's good. It's definitely different than their other games, but it's good. I haven't gotten very far into it, but Jacob loves it. He's played it like 6 times.
So, Packy, what was the initial game that you were going to play or did play, or?
Sea of
Yeah,
Stars.
that was it.
Oh yeah.
Ironically named incredibly similarly, and could not be a bigger difference to Starfield, and that it is Starfield is a first person action RPG with many, many different mechanics and many, many different interwoven stories in a simpler world than I think other ones they've done, but definitely a fairly complicated one in terms of narrative. And then you have a very traditional turn-based RPG with a very simple story that was clearly designed to be accessible for anybody at any age, with a very, very simple, like they just have very few mechanics, but the ones they did, they just polished incredibly, incredibly well. For like as basic as the turn-based combat was, which is enemies have weaknesses to certain weapon or certain type of ability, of which there are about 4 of each. And each character has one weapon and one type of ability, and then you just line up the colors. It's like playing a turn-based version of putting the right colored shape into the right colored hole. And you've got 4 of each. But they make it really, really work. And I played a fair bit of this game. I played I got probably 2/3 of the way through it. Probably a little bit further based on where it was in the story. It's excellent. I can't recommend enough if you could get this game for like a kid. I highly recommend that.
I mean,
or
that
if you
does
just want,
sound.
very
What you
basic.
described was literally the children's story of like, yeah, getting picking up the thing, shoving it through the hole, and then you upgrade to colors
Yeah,
on
and I
top of
think
shapes.
there's more to it than that. Like there's a basic weapon system, or gear system. There we go, and then there's platforming puzzles and all that fun stuff. It reminds me a lot of like, hey, they just looked at the fun RPGs that we played when we grew up, like the turn-based ones, and just put it into a more modern engine, and then made some absolutely gorgeous pixel graphics and threw it all together. It was just made with a lot of love and polish. It's a very, very good game. It is not worth $30. It's crazy to look at it compared to like other games that are coming out now. But it was fun. It is a great Game Pass edition. And if you cannot play games that are hard, it is a really, really good choice for a chill game.
This is nice, glowing.
I'll never finish it.
That actually, just the name reminds me of a very interesting addition or update to a game. Sea of Thieves, not Sea of Stars, is finally adding a PvE mode, which is very cool. And I am very intrigued by this. And I might, I mentioned I was like playing Halo as just like a fallback, like, do nothing game. And maybe I should actually like make my do nothing game just PvE Sea of Thieves. Cause like there is something just fucking relaxing as shit about like so casually sailing in that game and like doing things with like no rush, no, like it's just a very relaxing, soothing experience. And not having to worry about, a 4-man galleon coming down and destroying you instantly. Would be fantastic.
I remember so much having chill sessions of just going of like, especially when it was like the 2 or sometimes when we had 3 in the smaller ships when we didn't have 4 and we weren't terrorizing people. Like very, very chill, relaxed. We're just chatting and we go and we're having fun getting the chests and stuff. And we're not even really that focused on the game. And you're just doing that. And then it goes from the most chill experience to you see another boat or another boat comes up on you and you did not realize it. It's just like it instantly anxiety goes through the roof.
Which like, and there are moments that I loved that, right? But there are also moments where I just like, it was just very frustrating, right? Like I've complained about various games in the past having doo-doo combat. Bethesda games historically, actually, amusingly enough, and the combat in Sea of Thieves, specifically the not ship combat. The ship combat I always enjoyed, especially when they added like special cannonballs and shit. I always fucking loved ship combat in that game. Um, but the person combat, the player combat in Sea of Thieves was so doo doo ass.
It is so cruel to even bring up Bethesda in this conversation about Sea of Thieves combat. Sea of Thieves combat is so
that was
bad.
rude to anything to compare it to Sea of Thieves player combat, because like it's just fucking atrocious, and so like it was just frustrating that whenever those encounters did happen, and like you're talking about like anxiety split through the roof, like I always felt like we would be doing fine and it was like enjoyable and we were holding our own or whatever. And then they'd board the ship and then they just immediately kill us all because some like fucking crazy retard monkey man has like perfectly mastered the doo-doo combat that is Sea of Thieves. And he just like solos all four of us and he just says, "Get good" into the mic, noobs, over and over again while he camps our fucking ship, refusing to, scuttle, whatever, and forcing us to scuttle it. And so like I look forward to the PvE mode because I'm not saying I will never play the normal mode and Sea of Thieves again. I most likely will. I feel like that's a game I'm going to come back to at least once a year, just forever until they shut down the servers. But
this is the exact transition they're hoping you'll make, right? They're putting out PvE mode to draw you back, and then you'll do PvE mode and you'll get some cool cosmetics, and you'll be like, "I'm taking this on the open sea." And the sweats are waiting
and
for
they
you.
did.
They're patrolling the seas in their galleons, waiting for you to spawn.
They did some really interesting thing cool too. It was you cannot get Pirate Legend, which is level 50, I believe, in the PvE mode. I think the levels, like the levels, sick. I think cap at 40. I think they cap at 40 out of 50. And so it's like, play as much as you want, enjoy the game, be relaxing. But if you really want Pirate Legend, if you really want to call yourself the ultimate pirate, you have to go brave the high seas or whatever the fuck they call it. I don't know. Which I think is really cool. I think it's a nice way to do it, to like give the option to people, but still have a carrot. That's the way to do things, right? Like, don't have a stick to like disincentivize people from whatever. Have a carrot to incentivize people to play the other mode. If that makes sense. Like, I always think that's the right way to do it.
Perfectly, because it accommodates both audiences, right? It lets PvE players get most of the way there, and then give you that final challenge. And it also doesn't cheapen the Pirate Legends you've already got.
I think that's the big one.
You had to do it in a way that's hard.
So I thought that was really cool.
So it's just a funny arc for that game where they first, from popular demand, added a pure PvP mode where it's just like ship spawn in and there's like a whole mechanic to like force you to fight. Yeah, exactly. And then they about-faced and realized that is not, even though people asked for it, it's not what most of the player base wanted. Most of the player base like this, and this is true of the overwhelming majority of games that come out. Most of them just want to do the PvE stuff and didn't want to do the sweaty PvP stuff. And now they've gone, like, the quest lines were already a big venture into that, and now this is just full boat. Like, hey, we know you guys just really like the chill vibe of, because they just nailed the ocean atmosphere. Good. And then you add in the fact that sailing is also good. And it's just so chill to sail from one island to another.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Love that game.
My last kind of, when I was 15 minutes before I left work today, Ricardo was like, "Hey, did you see this? Did you all see that Jim Ryan is stepping down from Sony Interactive Entertainment after 30 fucking years? That's crazy. 30 years. He's just the head of PlayStation."
Oh, wow. No, I did not see that. That is crazy.
I didn't see that either.
Which, I mean, it's, who knows what it actually means. It's just kind of interesting. I mean, obviously I'm not a PlayStation guy, but I never particularly, he always gave me more businessman-y vibes than I liked, if that made sense. And so, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll just replace him with an even more businessman-y guy. So maybe it's...
I think what it means is that Microsoft is buying Sony. I think that's what it means. Where's the emails?
They if there were no laws, they could. They have the money.
I didn't realize just how fresh this was, because I was thinking like, oh, did I miss that news this week? This news is 3 hours old.
No, like I said, literally 15 minutes before I left work, he was just like, "Dude, look at this." And I was like, "Damn."
Even if you got it 15 minutes before you left work, he got that like when the news came out.
Yeah. So yeah, it was that's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what actually becomes of that going forward. Like I said, it feels like they have, two options. They could replace him obviously with a gamer bro, or they could replace him with, full blown business suit. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I wonder who shareholders will want to pick.
I know. It's crazy. It's
It's hard.
that guy looks real good in his suit.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Probably the CEO of Unity, it'd be my guess. Um, but all right, that's all I had. Those two little interesting tidbits: the PVE mode and Jim Ryan stepping down. Any final remarks or things to discuss from you all?
No.
All right.
New Game Plus is cool in Starfield, and this is not related to anything we talked about today, but I'm very excited for City Skylines 2, which comes out in late October.
I saw that in when I was trying to decide what to play. I saw that in the coming soon to Game Pass category.
Very, very excited.
If my one message from all this is it is worth the $15 for a month to try Game Pass. They just have some really good stuff on there, and there's even better stuff around the corner.
Yeah, definitely. Best deal in
That's
gaming.
where I saw Liza.
Send us money.
It's about. I think they announced the price hike, and I think the price hikes are actually about to take effect. So it's a slightly less of a best deal in gaming, but still the best deal in gaming.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Still objectively the best deal in gaming. It's not even
close. It's ridiculous.
For sure.
So.
Like Sony's trying, like theirs is good, but Xbox is still like wild.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you everybody for listening. This is episode 53, and catch us next week. See you guys.